ओके सो वेलकम टू यू ऑल टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म और हम लोग डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं वापस से अपने गोल्ड मार्केट के बारे में। और डिस्कस करेंगे कुछ न्यूज़ और डेटास। तो डिस्कस करने से पहले एक बार जानना चाहेंगे आप लोग आवाज़ क्लियर हो रही है, स्क्रीन प्रॉपर्ली विजिबल हो रही है? इफ यस काइंडली प्रेस 1, सॉरी प्रेस 40 to start session from here. If you want me to start this session from here, kindly press 40. काइंडली प्रेस 40 अगर आप लोग को आवाज़ क्लियर हो रही है और स्क्रीन प्रॉपर्ली विजिबल है, ताकि हम लोग सेशन यहाँ से स्टार्ट कर सकें। ओके सो इट्स 8:45 और देख सकते हैं प्राइजेस जो है 1757 58 के लेवल्स पे मूव करते हुए दिख रहे हैं, स्लाइट डिफरेंस के साथ वापस से सेम लेवल पे मूव करते हुए 1757 58 अगर ऐसे ही मूव करते दिखे तो क्लोजिंग कहीं ना कहीं सेम लेवल पे ही होते हुए दिखेगी और 55 to 60 के बीच में। स्लाइट डिफरेंस के साथ 1757 58 के लेवल्स पे मूव करते हुए देखने को मिल रहा है। ओके सो हम लोग अभी कोई पोजीशन तो कैरी नहीं करने वाले हैं स्ट्रेट, क्योंकि अभी मार्केट का मूव ऐसा नहीं है कि हम लोग पोजीशन कैरी कर सके। सो इंस्टेड ऑफ पोजीशन कैरिंग हम लोग आ जाते हैं अपने न्यूज़ सेक्शन पे एंड न्यूज़ सेक्शन पे हम लोग डिस्कस करेंगे गोल्ड न्यूज़ एफएक्स स्ट्रीट सबसे पहले। सो गोल्ड न्यूज़ एफएक्स स्ट्रीट में हम लोग डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं कुछ चीज़ें। सो XAU USD struggles for direction, stuck in a range above 1750 level. So gold was seen consolidating in a range, though the early North American session hawkish Fed expectations underpinned the USD and kept gain for the metal. Stagflation fears helped limit any meaningful slide for the safe haven commodity. देख सकते हैं 58 के लेवल्स पे मूव करते हुए देखने को मिल रहा है। From the current levels, any subsequent move up is likely to confirm stiff resistance near the 1770 area, जो कि अभी हम लोग का लेवल देखने को मिल रहा है। तो अगर अब एक बार अपसाइड राइज करते हुए दिखता है तो 1770 एक रेजिस्टेंस होगा और वहां से हम लोग को एक बार अपसाइड सर्च देखने को मिल सकता है। सम फॉलो थ्रू बाइंग हैज द पोटेंशियल टू लिफ्ट गोल्ड प्राइसेस बैक क्लोजर टुवर्ड 1783 to 84 horizontal barriers. A sustained strength beyond should allows SPY to bulls to aim back to reclaim the 1800 round figure mark. On the flip side, the 1750 Area now seems to have emerged as immediate support. A convincing break below might prompt aggressive selling, technical selling, and accelerate the slide towards September monthly swing lows around the 1722 to 21 region. Gold could eventually drop to test the 1700 mark in route August month swing lows around 1687 region. Fundamental overviews की बात करें तो gold lacked any firm directional bias and seesawed between tepid gains, minor losses, just above 1750 level through the early North American session. A combination of diverging forces failed to provide any impetus and led a subdued price action following Friday's turnaround from the post US job data highs to 1781 region or over 2 week tops. The disappointing headline NFP print was largely offset by an upward revision to the previous month's reading. Moreover, a fall in the unemployment rate to the lowest level since March 2020 reaffirmed market expectation that the Fed remain on the track to begin tapering its bond purchases later. This continued acting as a tailwind for the US dollar, which in turn undermined the dollar denominated commodity. Meanwhile, the market have also been betting on the possibility of interest rate hike in 2022 amid worries that the recent surge in the crude oil energy prices will stoke inflation. This was reinforced by elevated US Treasury bond yields, which was seen as another factor that weighed on the non-yielding gold. In fact, the yield on the benchmark 10 years US government bond shot to the 4-month top on Friday, around 1.612%. That said, expectation for a faster than expected rise in the inflation comes amid signs of a slowdown in the global economic recovery and has been fueling fears of a return of stagflation. This in turn tempered investors' appetite for perceived riskier asset and extended some support to the safe haven gold. It, however, remained to be seen if bulls are able to capitalize on the move amid holiday and liquidity conditions. Investors might also refrain from the placing aggressive bets ahead of this week's important releases, including the US consumer inflation figures and the FOMC meeting on Wednesday. Apart from this, the US monthly report retail sales figures on Friday will influence the near term USD price dynamics and provide a fresh directional impetus to gold. सो 1 वीक की बात कर ले तो 1 वीक की एवरेज फोरकास्टिंग देख सकते हैं बुलिश है बायस 57% बुलिश 36% बियरिश 7% साइडवेज बायस इज बुलिश 1 मंथ की एवरेज फोरकास्टिंग 1747.92 42% are bullish 33% are bearish and 25% are sideways 1 क्वार्टर की बात कर ले तो एवरेज फोरकास्टिंग 1777.69 39% are bullish 46% are bearish and 15% are sideways, that is bias purely bearish. सो गोल्ड प्राइस की वीकली आउटलुक हम लोग देखते हैं. Okay, so gold price weekly outlook XAU keeps fluctuate in the range of 1735 to 1785. Fundamental overview की बात कर ले so the US non-farm payrolls data recorded an increase of 1,94,000 last Friday, the second consecutive month below market expectations after the data was released. Gold spiked above 1781. However, the simultaneous release of the unemployment rate boosted investor confidence in the market as the unemployment rate of 4.8% hit its lowest value since May 2020. So the weak non-farm payrolls data didn't completely offset investors' expectation of tapering. In early November, gold fell below 1760 within 2 hours of the data release and maintained a low level of fluctuation. Okay, so हम लोग देख सकते हैं कि जिस तरीके से नॉन फार्म पेरोल्स के डेटा देखने को मिले उसके बाद गोल्ड ने पूरी तरीके से अपसाइड मूव दिखाया। तो कहीं ना कहीं एक्सपेक्टेशन थी कि अपसर्ज करते हुए देखने को मिल सकते हैं, लेकिन वापस से जब देखने को मिला तो गोल्ड वापस से सेम लेवल पे आते हुए देखने को मिला 2 घंटे के अंदर 1760 के लेवल्स पे। सो 4 आवर की चार्ट देख सकते हैं, तो 4 आवर चार्ट पूरी तरीके से हम लोग को देखने को मिले 1781 के लेवल से वापस से 60 तक के लेवल बनाती हुई दिखी। सो अकॉर्डिंग टू द 4 आवर चार्ट, as per the Dow theory analysis, gold is still within the range. The upper key resistance is 1780 to 85. The support level is 1740 to 50. The second support level is 1735, while 1735 is also the daily chart shape support level. Currently, the prices in the middle of the range, which also means that investors are not sure about the subsequent trend in the short term. It is not a wise choice for the traders to seek footing around the market price. मूव करते हैं अपने MT4 टर्मिनल पे, तो ओके प्राइसेस पूरी तरीके से स्टेबल होते हुए एक इनविजिबल कैंडल बनाते हुए दिख रहे हैं। 15 मिनट कैंडल की बात करें तो एक स्लाइट शॉर्ट ग्रीन कैंडल बनाते हुए देखने को मिल रहा है, जो कि पूरी तरीके से एक्सपेक्ट कर रही है कि मार्केट में अब मूव खत्म हो चुका है, मार्केट पूरी तरीके से स्टेबल होती हुई देखने को मिल रही है। 1758.20 थोड़ी सी स्टेबिलिटी, थोड़े से करेक्शन प्राइसेस मूव करते हुए। दो मिनट में इस कैंडल की क्लोजिंग का टाइम है, देखते हैं इस कैंडल की क्लोजिंग कहाँ पे देखने को मिलती है। देख सकते हैं पूरी स्टेबिलिटी 1757.59 के लेवल्स पूरी तरीके से स्टेबल होती मार्केट इस टाइम देखने को मिल रही है। बिल्कुल भी मूवमेंट नहीं है मार्केट में और मार्केट ट्रेड करने के लहजे से अभी बिल्कुल भी सही नहीं है। ओके सो एक दूसरी कैंडल फॉर्मेशन। ओके सो हम लोग मूव करते हैं वापस से अपने MT4 टर्मिनल से न्यूज़ सेक्शन की ओर और हम लोग डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं कुछ चीज़ें। सो आज हमारी 11th ऑफ अक्टूबर। So XAU USD on the back foot as NFP failed to alter taper prospects. Points to be covered today. Gold struggled to extend its rebound. Gold failed to make a decisive move. The US dollar index, the core inflation, gold technical outlook, gold sentiment pool. So gold spiked above. Okay, so gold spiked above 1780 but Friday but lost its bullish momentum. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं 1780 के लेवल्स देखने को मिले थे जब हम लोग को नॉन फॉर्म पेरोल्स के डेटा देखने को मिले थे। बट 1780 के लेवल बनाने के बाद जब एशियन मार्केट ओपन होती हुई दिखी तो वहां से अच्छा खासा करेक्शन आया और 1780 के लेवल से 2 घंटे के अंदर 1760 तक के लेवल बनते हुए देखने को मिले थे एंड वी हैव जनरेटेड टू मच प्रॉफिट फ्रॉम देयर ओनली डिस्पाइट द disappointing September job report. Dollar stays very silent. फोकस शिफ्ट टू दी यूएस सितंबर सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन डेटा। लेकिन हम लोग पूरी तरीके से उम्मीद नहीं कर रहे हैं क्योंकि पिछली बार से यही होते हुए दिख रहा है जिस तरीके से मार्केट में न्यूज आते हुए हम लोग को चेंजेस देखने को मिलते थे इस वक्त चेंजेस हम लोग को उल्टे होते हुए देखने को मिल रहे हैं बिकॉज कितने भी चेंजेस आ जाए यूएसडी हम लोग को सेम प्राइस पे ही मूव करते हुए देखने को मिल रहा है ज़्यादा फ्लक्चुएशन बिल्कुल नहीं तो उसकी वजह से गोल्ड भी सेम लेवल्स पे मूव करते हुए देखने को मिल रहा है तो बहुत ज़्यादा चेंजेस हम लोग किसी भी न्यूज़ से एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहे अभी तक। जब तक कि टेपरिंग के रिजल्ट नहीं आते तब तक हम लोग उम्मीद कर सकते हैं कि गोल्ड का जो मूव है 1735 टू 85 तक के लेवल्स के बीच में ही रहेगा। After ending the previous week on a firm footing, the XAU-USD pair continues to edge higher on Monday and reached a 10-day top of 1770. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं जिस तरीके से प्रीवियस फुटिंग 1720 तक के डेटा देखने को मिले थे और उसके बाद गोल्ड ने अपना मंडे को हाई बनाया 10 दिन का हाई 1770 के लेवल्स पे। Gold struggled to extend its rebound. Nevertheless, gold struggled to extend its rebound amid dollar resilience and formed a horizontal trading channel with a lower limit of 1750. Although the pair broke above the channel on Friday and touched a 50 days high of 1781 with the initial reaction to the disappointing September job report from the US, it retreated the below 1770 ahead of the weekend. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि इनिशियली जब जॉबलोस क्लेम्स बढ़ते हुए दिखे थे तो हम लोग को गोल्ड एक बार ऊपर आते हुए दिखा था और यूएसडी करेक्शन के साथ अपने लोस पे मूव करते हुए दिख रहा था बट आफ्टर सडन रिएक्शंस वापस से गोल्ड हमारा 70 60 और 50 के आसपास आते हुए दिखा था. एंड दैट वाज द पर्टिकुलर टाइम यूएसटी अपने वापस से हाइस पे देखने को मिला. So the risk averse market environment at the start of the week helped the precious metal find demand. The ongoing energy crisis and heightened concerns over the US lawmakers failing to the come to term to raise the debt limit caused investors to seek refuge. The only data from the US showed on Monday that factory orders increased by 1.2% on a monthly basis on August, but this reading received little to no market reaction. हम लोग देख रहे थे कि एक न्यूज़ और आती हुई दिखी थी, हम लोग जो कि फॉरेक्स फैक्ट्री डेटा से सारी न्यूज़ेस डिस्कस करते हैं, सारे डेटास. तो उस टाइम पे हम लोग को देखने को मिला था कि मंडे को फैक्ट्री ऑर्डर्स की अगर हम लोग बात करें तो 1.2% से इंक्रीज करते हुए देखने को मिल रहा था अगस्त में. बट उसके बाद क्या देखने को मिला कि मार्केट में जो मूव हम लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे वो नहीं आते हुए दिखा और मार्केट पूरी तरीके से स्लाइड मूव करती हुई देखने को मिली. डिसमल मार्केट मूव डिस्कस करेंगे, उसके पहले हम लोग 2 मिनट का ब्रेक लेंगे और 2 मिनट हम लोग प्राइस का एनालिसिस देखेंगे कि प्राइजेस कहाँ पे मूव कर रहे हैं. स्लाइटली मूव करते हुए प्राइजेस अपने हाइस पे जाते हुए दिख रहे हैं इस टाइम पे और उम्मीद करते हैं क्लोजिंग के टाइम भी 57 58 के लेवल सब दिखाने को मिले और स्टेबिलिटी अब इधर देखने को मिले. सो 2 मिनट प्राइस का मूव देखेंगे, उसके बाद आगे की चीजें डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं हम. ओके, सो गोल्ड का मूव देख रहे हैं तो पूरी तरीके से स्टेबिलिटी, हमारी दूसरी कैंडल भी पूरी तरीके से स्टेबिलिटी के साथ मूव करते हुए देखने को मिल रही है. आ जाते हैं अपने न्यूज़ सेक्शन पे. सो डिसमल मार्केट मूव. Okay, so reflecting the dismal market move, the S&P 500 index dropped to its lowest level since late July at 4,278 on Tuesday. And however, the greenback also managed to outperform its rivals as a safe haven and kept XUSD's upside. On Tuesday, the ISM Services PMI arrived at 61.9 in September, compared to analyst estimate of 60. But this print got largely ignored by the market participants. तो हम लोग देख रहे थे कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ जो कि हम लोग की आईएसएम सर्विसेज पीएमआई होती है एंड उसकी एक्सपेक्टेशन जो हम लोग की थी सितंबर मंथ की 60 की थी, बट रिजल्ट्स जो देखने को मिले 61.9, जिसकी वजह से पूरी तरीके से उम्मीद थी कि हम लोग की यूएसटी एक बार अपसाइड मूव करते हुए दिखेगी और गोल्ड करेक्ट होते हुए दिखेगा, बट इस टाइम भी हम लोग को ऐसा कुछ नहीं देखने को मिला और जिसने भी पोजीशंस को शॉर्ट किया दे वर इन ह्यूज लॉस बिकॉज मार्केट ने एक बार थोड़ा सा करेक्शन दिखा के वापस से बहुत अच्छा रिबाउंड करते हुए अपने हाईएस्ट को ब्रेक किया था। और यहाँ तक मुझे याद है 1769 1770 तक के टारगेट्स बनाती हुई देखने को मिली थी। सो इस टाइम जो न्यूज़ और डेटाज आ रहे हैं उनका इम्पैक्ट पूरी तरीके से पड़ने नहीं दे रहे हैं, क्योंकि बायर्स और सेलर्स इस तरीके से हैवी पड़ चुके हैं कि वो लोग किसी भी न्यूज़ को इम्पैक्ट नहीं करने दे रहे मार्केट पे। एंड इफ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द ऑटोमेटिक डेटा प्रोसेस, so on Wednesday, the Automatic Data Processing Research, that is ADP Research Institute, announced that the private sector employment is rose by 5,68,000, surpassing the market census of 4,28,000। तो देख सकते हैं जब हम लोग एडीपी नॉन फॉर्म एम्प्लॉयमेंट की चेंज की बात करते हैं तो प्रीवियसली हम लोग को एक्सपेक्टेशन जो थी 4,28,000 की थी और रिजल्ट्स जो आते हुए देखे 5,68,000 के। In the meantime, the US Senate passed the bill to raise the debt ceiling by $408 billion, though numbers easing concerns over a possible default. Gold failed to make a decisive move. So, moreover, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that they will be ramping up gas output to ease the pressure on energy prices in Europe and provided an additional boost to the sentiment. Although major global equities indexes gained traction in the second half of the week to mirror the positive shift witnessed in risk appetite, gold failed to make a decisive move in either direction as the US Treasury yield bond rises and supported the dollar. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि गोल्ड जो है किसी भी डायरेक्शन में इस टाइम मूव करते हुए नहीं दिख रहा है। हम लोग को आज भी सुबह से गोल्ड रेंज बाउंड होते हुए दिखा 1750 तक के लो और 1760 तक के हाई, यानी कि पूरी तरीके से $10 के बीच में डिफरेंस देखने को मिला, जबकि यूजुअली हम लोग को देखने को मिलता है गोल्ड का जो मूव होता है 20 to 22 डॉलर्स का डिफरेंस दिखाते हुए। बट अब आज हम लोग को बिना किसी न्यूज़ के बिना किसी डेटा के सिर्फ $10 का डिफरेंस देखने को मिला। पूरी मार्केट उसके बीच में सर्च करती रह गई। 10 years bond auction. So the benchmark 10-year US Treasury bond yield gained more than 3% on Thursday. थर्सडे को हमारी 10 years Treasury yield ने 10-15% से तेजी दिखाई and it's reached at this highest level in more than 4 months, above 1.6% on Friday. Finally, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that non-farm payrolls rose by 1,94,000 in September. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं यूएस ब्यूरो ऑफ लेबर स्टैटिस्टिक्स रिपोर्ट के द्वारा नॉन फार्म पेरोल्स जो हैं 1,94,000 से रोज करते हुए देखने को मिले। दिस रीडिंग मिस्ड एनालिस्ट फोरकास्ट ऑफ 5 lakh by a wide margin and triggered a USD sell-off. The US dollar index. So, however, the underlying details of the publication revealed that August print got revised higher to 3,66,000 from 2,35,000, and the unemployment rate declined to 4.8% from 5.2%। तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि अगस्त प्रिंट देखने को मिल रही है तो 2,35,000 से 3,66,000 देखने को मिली और इसके साथ साथ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट की बात करें तो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट हम लोग को डिक्लाइन करते हुए दिखा 4.8% से 5.82% से 4.84% तक के लेवल्स पे। The US dollar index. So the US dollar index, which dropped to a daily low of 93.94 after the NFP data, didn't have a difficult time rebounding above 94 and kept gold upside. डिस्कस करेंगे कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स दैट इज सीपीआई, बट उसके पहले हम लोग एक बार आ जाएंगे अपने MT4 टर्मिनल पे, क्योंकि 1 मिनट बाद इस कैंडल की क्लोजिंग का टाइम है और देखते हैं ये रेंज बॉन्डनेस हटती है या वही आती हुई दिखती है। सो हमारी एक दूसरी कैंडल फॉर्म होती 1757.80 के लेवल्स पे। प्राइजेस अब लगातार वापस से स्टेबिलिटी के जोन में जाते हुए, और हम लोग आ जाते हैं अपने सीपीआई डेटा पे। सो द कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स, देयर वोंट बी एनी हाई इम्पैक्ट डेटा रिलीज एट द स्टार्ट ऑफ द वीक. On Tuesday, the August job report from the UK and the ZEW survey from Germany will be featured in the economic docket, which are unlikely to have a significant impact on the XAU USD's movement. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं आज मंडे थी और आज हम लोग को कोई इंपॉर्टेंट डेटा देखने को नहीं मिला। ट्यूसडे को देखने को मिलेगा। इसके साथ ऑन वेडनेसडे द यूएस ब्यूरो ऑफ लेबर स्टैटिस्टिक्स विल रिलीज द कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स डेटा फॉर सितंबर. Investor forecast the annual CPI to tick up to 5.4% from 5.3% in August. The core inflation, so even if the core inflation in the US turned out to be softer than expected in September, this report by itself is unlikely to change the market's view on the Fed tapering plan. In fact, the market reaction to the September labor market report showed that the expectation for a reduction in the asset prices remains intact. Moreover, investors could opt to remain on the sidelines before the FOMC published the September meeting minute later in the day. On Thursday, the US Department of Labor weekly initial jobless claims data will be looked upon for fresh impetus ahead of Friday's retail sales report, which is anticipated to show a modest contraction in September. Okay, so we are moving towards technical outlook. So technical outlook की बात करें तो गोल्ड हम लोग को अभी भी बेयरिश देखने को मिल रहा है, क्योंकि एक बार अपसाइड मूव करते हुए दिखा, लेकिन वहां पे भी पूरी तरीके से तेजी देखने को नहीं मिल रही है, करेक्शन का ही माहौल बना हुआ है। तो अभी तेजी की उम्मीद तो हम लोग कर ही नहीं रहे हैं मार्केट से। सो टेक्निकल आउटलुक रिमेन्स bearish with the gold falling to break above 20-day simple moving average for the 18th straight trading day. Additionally, the relative strength index indicator on the daily chart stayed slightly below 50, confirming that views that sellers are looking to remain in control of XAU USD section. On the downside, the initial support is located at 1750. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं डाउन साइड में सबसे पहला सपोर्ट 1750 का देखने को मिल रहा है। Ahead of 1730 and 1720. The first hurdle aligns at 1763 ahead of 1760, but ये नहीं कि किसी न्यूज़ के बेसिस पे हम लोग को मूव देखने को मिल जाए, सो हम लोग प्रिडिक्ट करने लगे कि मार्केट का मूव अपसाइड हो गया है, बिल्कुल भी नहीं। जब तक कि वहाँ पे स्टेबिलिटी नहीं देखने को मिलती है, वी कांट से कि एक्चुअल में मार्केट वहाँ पे रिलाई कर रही है और अब बुलिश मोमेंटम बन रहा है। ओनली अ डेली क्लोज अबव द लेटर कुड ओपन द फ्लोर फॉर prolonged rebound towards 1800. तो हम लोग देख रहे हैं 1780, 90 के आसपास जब क्लोजिंग देखने को मिलेगी तभी हम लोग उम्मीद कर सकते हैं 1800 के लेवल्स बनते हुए दिखेंगे. Where the 100-day simple moving average, 200-day simple moving average, and the Fibonacci 50% retracement of the April-June rally meet. Sentiment poll की बात कर ले, so the FX Street forecast poll points to a slightly bullish bias in the near term with the 1 week target sitting at 1767. तो एक वीक का टारगेट जो है 1767 का देखने को मिल रहा है. 1 month view paints a mixed picture with 33% of experts holding a bearish view against 42% bullish. Furthermore, the average forecast of 1747 points to analyst indecisiveness for the 1 month time frame. Sentiment poll की बात कर ले तो 1 week की 1767, for 1 month 1747 and for 1 quarter 1777. सो एक बार आ जाते हैं MT4 टर्मिनल पे, तो प्राइजेस देख सकते हैं पूरी तरीके से स्टेबिलिटी के साथ. देख सकते हैं पूरी तरीके से स्टेबिलिटी मार्केट में बनी हुई है. इस टाइम भी हम लोग को 8 बजे 8 साढ़े 8 के बाद मार्केट का मूव वहीं पे स्टेबल होते हुए देखने को मिला. और हम लोग मूव करते हैं अपने गोल्ड न्यूज status.com की ओर. Our favorite site for the news analysis of gold. So precious gold slipped on the dollar strength as Fed tapers looms. So platinum hits 2-month high. Downside pressure on gold is starting to near its end catalyst. Gold slipped on Monday as dollar strengthened on bets the Federal Reserve would not put off stimulus tapering, but stagflation expectations limited losses in the bullion that is perceived as a hedge against inflation. Spot gold was last down 0.1% to $1755.81 per ounce by 10:46 a.m. EDT, while US gold futures rose 0.1% to $17,858.50. Support for gold could be coming from some people thinking we have some stagflation at the moment, which is when gold is at the best as inflation goes higher. Jitters over high inflation combined by stalling economic growth stunted global shares amid rallying gold oil prices. The dollar held steady, hurting gold's appeal for those holding other currencies. While the dollar's dominance could last until the Fed announced tapering, the downside pressure on the gold is starting to near its end, and we are approaching a peak where gold can finally stabilize and ultimately regain its historically longer bullish trend. Higher interest rate that come a tighter monetary policy translate into increased opportunity cost of holding bullion, dulling its appeal. Spot silver rose 0.1% to $22.68 per ounce. Palladium advanced 3% to $2140.14 per ounce, with analysts attributing the bounce to short covering after recent declines, while platinum was last down 0.5% at $1021.02 after hitting a 2-month peak earlier. Palladium is seeing a technical rebound after prices is support around 1870. Fundamentals haven't changed much with the auto sector continuing to face challenges due to microchip shortage. Until we see auto production recovering meaningfully, which will depend on the availability of semiconductors, we expect PGMs to remain volatile. Platinum and palladium are used mainly in the vehicle engines to reduce emissions. मूव करते हैं MT4 पे, तो प्राइजेस पूरी तरीके से 1757 के लेवल्स पे. 1757.6465. सेवनटीन 57.78, 1758 के लेवल्स. और हम लोग एक यहाँ पे एक छोटी सी क्लिप देखेंगे गोल्ड के लिए.
The upcoming Future Blockchain Summit coverage is
ये न्यूज़ हमारे गोल्ड के जरिए के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. हम लोगों ने थोड़ी देर पहले आधी कंप्लीट की थी, अब पूरी देखते हैं.
The jobs report is a miss and why Bitcoin's September moves should worry gold holders. My name is Michael McCrae, and you are listening to Kitco Roundtable. Editor Niels Christensen is in. Hi, Niels.
Hello, everybody. Happy weekend. Happy long weekend to all our Canadian listeners.
Kitco correspondent Paul Harris. Hi, Paul.
Hey, good afternoon.
And with us is junior miner junkie. It is David Erfley. David, welcome back to Kitco.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Always great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on again.
Catch us up on junior miner junkie, David.
Yeah, it's going really well. You know, I started the service back in April of 2017. I kind of wanted to do a different twist. I'm completely transparent, meaning, my subscribers know all my trades. I give them a heads up before I announce I'm taking a position in something, and I also give them a heads up if I'm considering selling the position. So that's worked really well. It's kind of like a we're all in it together attitude. Like, we're all trying to make money in the same stock. So we all try to get in and get out kind of at the same time. So for that reason, I've limited it to 500 members. And my weekly update is pretty all-inclusive. I give kind of a synopsis of the economic situation that took place during the week, precious metals update, the week ahead, and all the press releases from the companies I'm invested in and the ones on my watch list.
David is an occasional contributor to Kitco. I strongly urge you to check out his column. He's very good on talking about technicals, gold moves, and then also linking that to juniors and gold miners in the sector. Niels, there was a big jobs report today.
Yeah, was there? You looking at the gold price, you wouldn't notice. So September, it's a little disappointing. So September, major miss in the jobs numbers. Everybody was expecting, 490,000, up to 500,000. This is what we needed to see to have sort of this taper talk. Is the Fed going to reduce their bond purchases, or aren't they? This was going to be the make or break report. Came in 196,000 jobs. So like another really big miss. It missed in August as well. And that's why this report was really important. However, as it turns out, a lot of economists are saying that the Fed is pretty much still going to be on track. They're going to make up excuses to justify tapering at this point. They're pretty much on track to start their shift in monetary policy now. We saw gold prices hit a 2-week high. They tested resistance at 1780, just like a little bit after the report, and then hit a brick wall and came back down. We're pretty much ending the week on in gold prices, pretty much flat from where we were last Friday. So it's been a really interesting volatility today.
All.
Just for clarity, and I'm not strong on this aspect of it. So when the Fed says it's tapering, that means it's going to reduce its purchase of US assets.
Oh yeah. It's still expanding its balance sheet.
Does that mean that the US is going to taper its issuance of treasuries, or are the two things completely separate?
I am not going to know that answer. I just know that it's all to do with their balance sheet. From what I understand, it's the emergency measures that they introduced during COVID in March of 2020, I do believe. And so those purchases, they're going to be reduced. People are speculating, probably bring it back down to 180 and then reduce it every month therein after. So I don't know how that relates to issuances. I don't know that.
Yeah, it's usually a bag of, how would you say, a large collection of tools that they actually have for affecting the types of easing that they have. I just want to bring in David's thoughts, because I know that you're going to have some thoughts on technicals and then also just the impact of this jobs report. But just the one other piece that I noticed, and I think I'm going to be using the word decoupling a couple of times, but there was a real divergence between high school and college graduated. So high school graduates really having a tough time that was indicated out of this jobs report versus the people that are college educated and just seeing growth, what's happening in office work. David, your thoughts on the jobs report and how gold is reacting?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like Neil said, the gold price ran up quickly to strong resistance there at 1780. And then it started to come right back down because Jerome Powell, during his last discussion, I think, with Congress, said that, this jobs report doesn't have to be fantastic. And they, after analysts dug into it, they saw some positives in it, and the gold price came right back down. But what is interesting to note is that the gold shares continue to show relative strength. The GDX and the GDXJ are maintaining their gains. Those gains weren't reversed, as gold stocks have been completely obliterated since Powell announced that they were talking about tapering back in June. I mean, tax loss selling in the gold sector actually began in June. I mean, I myself was looking at some things that I was close to the wire on. I thought, you know what? I better sell this. If I have a little loss on it, I'm going to sell it for tax loss now, because I expect the gold price to go lower. And I expect a lot of these other people who got into these stocks a lot higher last year when they were zooming up are going to be selling for tax loss as the stock market continues to go higher. At the time in June and July, they're considering, hey, why am I holding on to these gold stocks that I had losses in? I'll just go ahead and sell it for tax loss now and rotate the capital into equity.
David, let's have the discussion later in the podcast just regarding what's happening with the moves on the juniors and things like that. Just keep it to gold and macro for now. But
okay.
Just the impacts that we're having on it. Niels, you had a question.
Well, actually, comment as well, and the employment report actually wasn't all bad, especially for gold. So employment wages, average hourly wages, actually increased 0.6% in September, which is huge. I mean, and this is what I think is forcing the Fed's hand, is that inflation, wage inflation, is picking up. 0.6% increase this month, 0.6% increase in August. So we're seeing wages rises, and this is what led to the 1970s inflation trade, is that things started increasing, wages started increasing, and then they started chasing each other. So people had to have higher wages to afford their baubles and whatnots. So I think this is kind of forcing the Fed's hand, but it's just really interesting. It's not impacting gold because everything inflationary now is just leading to more hawkish expectations of the Fed. So we're seeing actually real yields rise, but it's really disappointing that gold can't find any traction in what should be a perfect environment for it.
David.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting. It's pretty much get your bell bottoms out and your disco records, because that word stagflation has come back into these discussions now. Because also in that same meeting with Powell in Congress, he was acknowledging his frustration about inflation remaining high, and now we have this energy crisis going on. So everything that we need to survive continues to go up. And that, of course, that wage increase was nice to see, but wages aren't increasing nearly as much as inflation. So you have a weakening economy due to what's going on with COVID, and you have the rising inflation, not only due to the money printing, but due to shortages.
Just mentioning oil, you have the Brent, the global benchmark, it surged 50% this year. Niels, maybe just one last point on this in the gold discussion. Sir, I'll hand it over, and Paul as well too, before we kind of get onto other commodities. Niels,
just wanted to ask David, I mean, what do you think is needed to get investors interested in the gold market again? What gets prices up?
Well, a big one is the stock market topic. It's gone up for 12 straight years. There's been no reason for investors to invest in those risky gold stocks. Why should I bother getting in this risky sector that's been dead money for so long? It doesn't matter that the gold price is where it is. These miners continue to go down after going up so much last year. I mean, we had a huge move last year in only 4.8 months, which needs time to consolidate. And while these stocks are coming down, like I said, investors they were still making money in the stock market until recently. So recently, we've had a topping pattern come in, especially in tech stocks. These high flying tech stocks. I mentioned in my column last week that something similar happened last week to what happened during the major bottom in 2018. We had, during that major bottom in 2018, what started to turn the ship around for the gold stocks was the announcement of that Barrick-Randgold merger. That was a high-profile merger that got the attention of generalist investors. Hey, look at these gold stocks. Look how cheap they are in relation to the gold price, right? And now they're getting bigger. I can invest in them, and they pay dividends. So the same thing may have happened last week when Agnico announced that merger with Kirkland Lake. And I mentioned it in my column. And sure enough, 2 days later, the gold stocks have made a bottom. I'm not saying it's the bottom, but I think a lot of these generalist investors are maybe starting to rotate some of those high flying tech stock profits into the mining space.
Paul.
Just a sort of couple of data points to add to the conversation. Oil, WTI is at a 7-year high at about $80 a barrel. And something impacting some of the bigger tech stocks. This week, Ireland agreed to toe the line with OECD and raise its corporate tax rate, its base corporate tax rate to 15% from 12.5%. A lot of big tech companies have domiciled in Dublin, in Ireland, to benefit from a globally low tax rate.
Niels, what did the weekly gold survey say?
The weekly gold survey actually, despite gold stuck in neutral, we're seeing more bullish sentiment after 2 weeks of sort of lackluster interest from retail investors. They're now 53% bullish on gold in the near term. Analysts are 58% bullish on gold. So we are seeing like there is potential. I think a lot of people are expecting this inflation trade. You can't ignore this energy crisis for much longer. And it's really like people are actually saying that, inflation now is going to bleed into 2022. You can't. So as much as people sort of want to ignore it, they won't be able to. And that's really going to help gold prices, I think.
Well, it should help gold prices. September was an interesting month, Niels. The stock dropped along with gold. The S&P was down 2%, ditto gold. However, Bitcoin was the counter-cyclical, rising 4% during the month. Forbes write the decoupling of Bitcoin and stocks could revive one of the long-standing promises of cryptocurrencies heralded by the proponents that it can serve as a hedge to protect investments portfolios when equities sell off during times of turmoil. That's a function that's highly in demand now, with many worrying that treasuries can't be relied upon to perform the role during a period of ultra low yields and accelerating inflation. And in the same article, JP Morgan says perhaps Bitcoin is a better inflation hedge than gold.
The low interest rate environment, that's exactly the argument people use to get into gold. And I think as much as I don't want to admit it, I think Bitcoin is having an impact on the gold market. People who would turn to gold for that hedge are now turning to Bitcoin because it's a lot more exciting trade, especially as that, if you're looking for just short-term hedge against treasuries. This week, Bank of America, the U.S.'s second largest bank in the U.S., they came out with a report and said that Bitcoin is too big to ignore. They also said that it has the potential to transform markets over the next 30 years. Coupled with that, earlier this week as well, George Soros the Soros fund created by billionaire George Soros, they also said that they actually hold some Bitcoin and it is now a mainstream asset. So gold, it feels like it's similar to the pot stocks from a few years ago. Bitcoin is right now this competition. We'll see how long it lasts. I mean, you got to remember, Bitcoin doesn't have the history that gold had. So I'm really interested to see if this trend is sustainable. Sort of like what we saw with pot stocks.
I think people were turning to pot to take the edge off the market in a different way.
More ways than one.
Before we leave macro, I just want to give a shout out to lithium. The benchmark mineral intelligence lithium index is up 159% for the year. It even gained a quarter last September. There's been a flurry of deals. We'll be talking about that later in the podcast. Bloomberg forecasts that lithium consumption is estimated to grow fivefold by the end of this decade. Paul?
Just to follow up on that, Michael, if you're looking at the chart, it's vertical. The lithium price rise is vertical on the benchmark index. It's bonkers.
Let's turn to miners, developers, and juniors, but first, our sponsor. Cisco Mining is drilling out its flagship Windfall gold deposit, one of the highest grade resource stage gold projects in Canada, and with a world-class scale. If you follow the junior space, you have seen Windfall's headlines, and you will be seeing a headline just a moment. Windfall is located in Quebec, a tier 1 mining jurisdiction operated by a Cisco's team of trusted and experienced mining executives. It's held the distinction of being Canada's biggest drill program. Windfall's announced a series of bonanza grades from drilling at its new discovery 1 kilometer north. A preliminary economic assessment on the project estimated that the first 7 years of full operation would produce 300,000 ounces of gold per year at an average grade of 8.1 gram per ton gold and an all-in sustaining cost of $610 an ounce gold. Capital expenditure just over $500 million. Windfall is estimated to generate $8.2 billion in gross revenue and $1.7 billion in taxes and generate hundreds of jobs. This is Cisco Mining, and we thank them for the support. Paul, in the note before the podcast, you said it was a great week for news. So what's so great about High Gold's drill results up in Alaska?
Well, I've said it before, but every week seems to have a cluster of similar news stories. And this past week seems to be crazy high-grade gold week. High Gold Mining reported drilling results from its Difficult Creek prospect, its Johnson Tract project in Alaska. Highlights there included 6.4 meters, grading 577.9 grams per ton gold, with more than 2 kilograms per ton silver, 2% zinc, and some copper thrown in as well. The company said it was a game-changing hole, which is probably the understatement of the week. Difficult Creek is about 4 kilometers from Johnson Tract, where High Gold has 750,000 ounces of an indicated resources, grading 10.9 grams per ton gold equivalent.
It never seems like we get enough news out of Alaska, but maybe with all the activity that is happening up in the triangle in British Columbia, we're just going to see more interest in the space. And also, of course, we had Rob McLeod on 2 weeks ago that's focused on the area. Paul, there's bonanza grades, but you wrote that Osisko's windfall hit bonker grades.
Yes, if you like 578 grams per ton, you're going to love Osisko Mining, who reported an intercept of 2.3 meters, grading 3,979 grams per ton at Windfall in the Abitibi district, Quebec, in Canada. Another crazy result. They put out so many good drill results. One almost gets blasé about them, but with that one, I think we're ripe to hit them up for another sponsorship for the Kitco Roundtable.
We thank you. We thank Osisko, and we thank Paul Harris for our support. Let's stay in Quebec. What did Maple Gold Mines announce?
Yes, I think this, in the context of what happened in the Lady this week, this is going to sound a bit of a damp squib, but Maple Gold Mines on Monday reported the final 9 holes from their winter drilling campaign at the Douay Gold project in Quebec, which is a project they're doing with Agnico Eagle. And they included a highlight of 1 meter grading 334 grams per ton in the porphyry zone, which is, they said, was one of the highest grade intercepts ever at Douay. And they expect to produce an updated resource estimate before year end. Why this stuck out for me at the time, and a bit of bear baiting here, is because that hit outshined Great Bear Resources, 1.2 meters at 157 grams per ton at the Deep LP fold at their Dixie project in the Red Lake district of Ontario. And it stuck out because it's not often that Great Bear Resources gets pushed aside by a bit better result.
Let's head down south to the U.S. and George Slamus's Integra. I believe they upsized the resource, Paul.
Yes, that's right. They've increased the scope of a pre-feasibility study that they're undertaking at the Delamar Gold-Silver project in Idaho to increase the throughput to a possible 35,000 tonne a day heap leach facility, as well as a possible 10,000 tonne a day mill facility. They've undertaken trade-off studies and optimization studies there to incorporate more unoxidized resource and to improve silver recoveries. So the PFS remains on schedule for completion before year end, and Integra expects that to show a 50% or more increase in gold and silver production, and over a longer mine life, compared with the 124,000 ounces gold equivalent over 10 years that they had in the PEA.
Fill me in on a streaming and royalty company, Sandstorm, and its push into the ESG space, Paul.
Yes, this really struck out to me because Sandstorm announced that it's increased its revolving credit facility by 55% to allow it to borrow up to $350 million. Nothing really unusual or strange about that. The thing that stuck out was that this new loan deal incorporates sustainability-linked performance targets, which the company says will allow it to reduce the cost of capital, by up to 5 basis points in the measure that it achieves certain sustainability metrics. These include maintaining an ESG rating of A on the MSCI rating index, maintaining or improving a diverse representation at senior management and board levels, and including having its producing assets reporting under sustainability and climate-related standards. The company says it's the first deal of this kind, this financing of this kind in the royalty space, and it will set a benchmark of things to come in the future.
Paul, you usually send us updates just regarding juniors, but you did mention here to ask you about the mining royalty bill in the U.S. Senate.
Yes, I thought this was relevant because it created a lot of noise, even though a lot of people, most people in the sector in the US, thought it didn't have a great deal of legs, and that is proving to be the case. This past week, the US Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, bipartisan committee there, they pounded the attempt to impose a higher royalty regime through the back door on the 1872 mining law. The proposed $3.5 trillion reconciliation spending plan, included a provision to levy an 8% gross royalty on existing mines, 4% on new ones, as well as impose a 7 cent per ton fee for rock moving. So they're almost certainly going to be struck from that now. Senators from both the Democrat and Republican parties stated their opposition to an attempt to change mining law through bipartisan budget processes.
Let's go to lithium. Lithium America is going to increase its Thacker Pass capacity, Paul.
That's right. They announced that their Thacker Pass project in Nevada in the USA, they're looking to increase their exhaust estimate to 13.7 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent in the measured and indicated category, and 4.4 million tons lithium carbonate equivalent in the inferred resources due to a change in the cutoff grade and having done additional drilling since the last resource estimate. With this larger resource, the company said it's increasing the scope and capacity of the phase one of its operation to a 40,000 ton per year of lithium carbonate production from previous 30 to 35,000 tons a year. And the second phase development contemplates adding another 40,000 tons a year to that, which would bring the site total to 80,000 tons a year. The company has a feasibility study underway and said it will provide an update on the timing of completing that in early 2022.
I want to bring back Dave Erfley in just a moment, but I just want to follow up on what Paul was talking about in the lithium space. We've seen the prices just go vertical, and there's just been a slew of deals that were announced this week with the major automakers. The automakers seem to be realizing that this is a critical metal and they need to secure their supply. I mentioned BHP Group that said on Monday it agreed to a supply nickel sulfate agreement with battery joint making venture between Toyota Motors and Panasonic. There's also General Electric. They said on Wednesday that they plan to study ways they could develop a supply chain of rare earths and other minerals used to make electric vehicles and renewable energy. BMW said on Wednesday it will invest in lithium technology startup Lilac Solutions to support a more efficient way to produce electric vehicle battery metal. David, we were bringing you back. We were talking previously about what was happening in the gold space and just kind of these, I guess, kind of the beaten up junior space. It really is tough out there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Like I mentioned before, as soon as Powell brought out the talking about tapering, the tax loss selling began, and it's been really difficult. I've started to build up cash a while ago, and my cash reserve was getting larger and larger, and my core holdings that I had massive gains in. I did trim some of those gains earlier, but watching them go down is not fun. But we're in this for the long haul, and the game is to during up legs you trim your winners, and once you feel the sector's topped out, you keep an eye on these things, and if they start going lower and they break down, you got to sell them and come back to them later. There's a 30-day wash rule on these tax loss sales, and experienced investors that are selling early for tax loss, they just say to themselves, I know this is a quality company, but I expect it to go lower. I'll just buy it back later toward the end of the year, when I expect the sector to bottom. The sector usually bottoms around this time of year. And as far as what it's done recently, I mean, it's incredible how far it's gone down. And but it was incredible how far it went up in such a short amount of time. So, I still hold a lot of cash, but I did deploy some of that this week. I sent out an email to my subscribers that I was going to purchase back a few positions that I sold for tax loss a few months ago. So
let's get those names, but just later. But Paul, you had a question.
Well, yeah, it's more comment, but it will turn into a question for David. The last couple of years have been characterized by, generally speaking, rising precious metals prices. And because of that, the finance window for juniors opened, and a lot of companies, junior explorers in the gold and silver space, were able to raise quantities of money that they haven't been able to raise for 10 or 15 years. We bought deals, double-digit millions of dollars. Great, fantastic. I've been at the Discoveries conference in Mexico this week, speaking with a lot of juniors, and it's very clear. Most people think that the finance window is closed, or is currently closed, and so that creates, we're in October. People are doing their budgets for next year. It's a very difficult time for a lot of juniors, I think, especially those whose treasuries are running down. And we're looking at perhaps financing towards the end of this year or early next year. They're in a bit of a dilemma. Do they continue operating and drilling at the pace they have been, which the market and investors have got accustomed to? Or do they take the foot off the gas to conserve cash and reduce, therefore, their information flow, their news flow, and therefore become irrelevant to investors? Or do they just suck it up and take the dilution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point and a great question. And it's company specific. If the company is in the process of drilling out a high margin project, they've already proved up a certain amount of ounces, they have access to capital, then they're going to continue. But these companies that didn't do the right thing, that didn't raise the capital necessary when their stock prices were at much higher last year and early this year, those are paying the price. They're grasping at straws to try to raise capital, and even if they're able to, they're going to have to offer a full warrant at a depressed share price, which will massively dilute their stock. I've seen it happen in a few companies. So you just got to make sure that if you're considering to bottom fish here, you really have to sharpen your pencil and make sure that each one of these companies checks every box, because there's a lot of them out there, right? There's a lot of junior babies, quality babies being thrown out with the lifestyle junior bathwater here. So you have to make sure that they've got the management teams that got access to capital, they've already got the project, and they have enough cash to last them through next year.
So it sounds like there's perhaps another sort of decoupling or bifurcation starting between those that have and those that perhaps don't have so much.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, you want to make sure that, these management teams, they've been through these things before, the serially successful ones. They know what to do. When their share price is really high, they raise capital. Sure, they're going to get grumbles from investors, but hey, this is what we do. We juniors consume capital. They need capital. So all the ones that did the right things and raised the capital, because everybody was cashing out last year, earlier this year and last year. So that's the great thing, though, about the bottom that I think is forming here and the bottom that was forming in 2018. In 2018, there a lot of these companies weren't cashed up, and especially in the low in 2020 when we had that panic low, everybody needed cash. Now, most of these companies are cashed up. So that's a big difference.
Niels.
David, I just wanted to ask, is everything equal in the sector? Or I know you pay a lot of attention to precious metals, but I'm sort of wondering, lackluster interest there. Would it be better to look at explorers in battery metals market, explorers in lithium, explorers in base metals, nickel, copper, even rare earths, to get into some of these more exciting metals? Or is it lackluster across the board?
Just to tack on to Niels's question, David, but also how many companies are you hearing that are, kind of emphasizing their copper holdings?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've got a few on my watch list that do have copper holdings, and I haven't seen them emphasize that. But as far as Neil's question is concerned, the precious metal stocks are the ones most bombed out here. They're creating the most opportunity. The copper price doubled and it's consolidating here. We don't know if we start to have a liquidity moment in the stock market, which is very possible here. I think obviously copper would get hit along with most everything else, and it's kind of a head and shoulderish type top after doubling in a short amount of time. So I like to concentrate on value And the value right now is in the precious metal space because it's so depressed, it's so bombed out. The sentiment is black bearish. The commitment of traders report last week was the most bullish commitment of traders report I've seen in over a year. So this is a great time to be accumulating these things. I'm not saying go all in, but it's a good time to be nibbling down here at these prices.
What have you thought about the mergers and acquisitions climate through the year, David? We did start talking about what was happening with Kirkland and with Agnico.
Yeah, we had one more merger. I forget which one, which companies it was.
Well, we had we started off the year with Agnico and TMAC. So,
oh, you're talking about the year? Yeah.
Talking about the year.
Yeah, and it was lackluster because these companies couldn't get on site. They couldn't get on site to do their due diligence. So the acquisitions that we did see were companies that were very familiar with the projects already, and they didn't have to go visit them again. But since that is opening up now, the last time we had a high profile major merger was that Randgold Barrick, and then 3 months later the Newmont Gold Corp, and that set off a wave. I think there's a good chance it could set off a wave here because these guys have learned their mistakes from the last bull market when they bought low margin assets at a peak, and they had to write them down and they lost a ton of money and they upset everybody. And so now they've learned from that. And the evidence of them learning from that is these major mergers are being announced at times of bottoms. They're looking at these assets when they're cheap now, and they're concentrating on high margin.
Paul?
And they're also more or less merger of equals, all stock deals, so maintaining the capital discipline. Although, ironically, I guess some investors are never happy. I imagine a lot of investors were looking for a big cash payout.
Right.
Niels?
Well, that was actually going to be my question. I mean, does actually that merger kind of hurt the market? I mean, when you can't get a premium on something like this, when Kirkland investors can't get a premium on a merger, where's the value creation then in M&A? I harken back to last time you were on, we were talking. You love a cash deal. You love that instant
gratification, instant payoff. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, to your question, I love this Agnico Kirkland deal. I wouldn't love it as much if I was a Kirkland shareholder, because I think there was more upside there on their own. But
okay, so we have discussed a lot of newses और हम लोगों ने बहुत सारी चीज़ें डिस्कस कर ली हैं. वापस से हम लोग एक बार MT4 टर्मिनल पे आते हैं, तो MT4 टर्मिनल पे देख सकते हैं वापस से थोड़े डिप्स दिखाती हुई मिली मार्केट, थोड़े करेक्शन के साथ 1755 तक के लेवल्स वापस से दिखाए और स्टिल वापस से एक बार 1757 के लेवल्स पे मूव करती हुई देखने को मिली है, थोड़े से अपसाइड लेवल सर्च करते हुए. लेकिन ये तेजी नहीं है, तेजी के संकेत बिल्कुल भी नहीं है, क्योंकि आज की क्लोजिंग हम लोग को वापस से डाउन देखने को मिलने वाली है. एंड क्लोजिंग डाउन देखने को मिलेगी तो वापस से कल की ओपनिंग और आगे का मूव डाउन का ही हो सकता है, क्योंकि डेली बेसिस पे हम लोग को क्लोजिंग कहीं ना कहीं यहीं पे दिख रही है. तो ये जो सस्टेनेबल मूव है मार्केट का, पूरी तरीके से स्टेबिलिटी का, पॉसिबल एक अच्छा खासा ब्रेकआउट दे जाए और पॉसिबल एक अच्छा खासा ब्रेकडाउन दे जाए. द थिंग इज कि हम लोग को यही देखना है कि एक ब्रेकआउट देती है या ब्रेकडाउन देती है. जिस तरीके का मूव देगी उस तरीके से हम लोग मार्केट में देखेंगे कि कैसे रिएक्ट करना है और कैसे हम लोग को इसमें ट्रीट करना है. फिलहाल तो मार्केट का मूड हम लोग को बेयरिश ही देखने को लग रहा है, नॉट सो बुलिश वी आर एट दिस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट। एक बार हम लोग investing.com पे देख लेते हैं गोल्ड का मूव। सो वी आर मूविंग टुवर्ड्स investing.com लाइव चार्ट्स। लाइव चार्ट्स ओपन होंगी और हम लोग इसमें XAU USD का आगे का मूव देखेंगे एक बार। ओके, सो हियर वी आर विद गोल्ड investing.com और हम लोग ये देखने जा रहे हैं XAU USD का मूव गोल्ड स्पॉट। तो देख सकते हो गोल्ड अपने हाई से बहुत ही करेक्शन के साथ है। हाई अपना 2000 के आसपास बनाया हुआ है इसने, 2075 के आसपास का, या इट्स 2069.77 फ्रॉम हेयर ऑनवर्ड्स, और अभी पूरी तरीके से कंसोलिडेशन के साथ है। ट्रेंड लाइन के फॉर्मेशन को देखें तो देख सकते हैं कि गोल्ड अभी भी बेयरिश पैटर्न में है। जिस तरीके से मार्केट का मूव है, कंसोलिडेशन जिस तरीके के दिखा रहा है, अगर इस लेवल को ब्रेक कर जाता है तो लाइक दैट वुड बी द लेवल जो कि इसको ब्रेक करना है, और वो है लेवल इसका 1796। एक्चुअली दिस इज द लेवल 1795-96 का जो लेवल है, इसको ब्रेक करना बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है। जैसे ये ब्रेक करते हुए दिखेगा, हम लोग देखेंगे कि गोल्ड का मूव एक बार अपसाइड मूव करते हुए देखने को मिलेगा। इसके ऊपर हम लोग को क्लोजिंग चाहिए बेसिकली, तब हम लोग कह सकते हैं कि गोल्ड एक बार अपसर्ज करता हुआ देखने को मिल सकता है। और एल्सवेयर अगर इसको सर्च नहीं करता है तो हमारे लिए एक बहुत अच्छा सपोर्ट ये लेवल है 1720 के आसपास का। अगर वो ब्रेक होते हुए दिखता है तो हम लोग को डाउन साइड मोमेंटम देखने को मिल सकते हैं, कि पूरी की पूरी रेंज 1724 टू 1795 तक के लेवल्स की है। इसके बीच में ही मार्केट का कंसोलिडेशन है। जिस तरीके से मूव देखने को मिलेगा उसी तरीके से हम लोग देखेंगे कि कैसे मूवमेंट है। हम लोग एक बार अपना इंडिकेटर यूज कर रहे हैं, स्टोकेस्टिक ऑसिलेटर। और स्टोकेस्टिक की बात करें तो स्टोकेस्टिक अभी जो है मोमेंटम हम लोग को डाउन का ही दिखा रहा है, कि डाउन होता हुआ दिख सकता है एक बार, और डिप्स से वापस से बाय कर सकते हैं हम लोग, क्योंकि फेस्ट सीजन आने को है, दिवाली आने को है। दिवाली में एक बार सोना चमकते हुए दिखता है, तो उस बेसिस से हम लोग देखें तो एक बार अपसर्ज करता हुआ देखने को मिल सकता है हमें गोल्ड। तो गोल्ड के आगे का मूव हम लोग को तेजी तभी देखने को मिलेगी जब एक बार 1834 के ऊपर बाय देखने को मिलेगी, क्योंकि 1834 देख सकते हैं एक हर्डल है जो कि मार्केट पिछले कुछ महीनों से ब्रेक ही नहीं कर पाई है। देख सकते हैं दिस इज द गुड रेजिस्टेंस फॉर मार्केट, जो कि ब्रेक करना बहुत ही मुश्किल हो गया मार्केट के लिए इस टाइम पे। जिस दिन ब्रेक किए उस दिन अपसाइड्स देखने को मिलेंगे, और अगर जैसे कि गोल्ड हमारा डेली हर ईयर वाइज बेसिस पे अपसाइड ही मूव दिखाता है, तो गोल्ड बहुत ज़्यादा नीचे नहीं जाएगा, वो अपसाइड मूव होते हुए ही दिखेगा। सो हमारी साइड से आज के लिए इतना ही। अगर आप लोग के साइड से कोई भी क्वेरी हो तो आप लोग कमेंट सेक्शन में मेंशन कर सकते हैं, लाइक इफ देयर इज एनी क्वेरी फ्रॉम योर साइड, लाइव चैट सेशन इज ओपन फॉर यू, you can just mention or else type 100 to end with the session right here. ओके, सो हम लोग आज का सेशन यहीं पे एंड करते हैं। आई होप आप लोग को सारी चीज़ें क्लियर हो रही होंगी, और बाकी चीज़ें हम लोग कल के सेशन में डिस्कस करेंगे। तब तक के लिए थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग एंड कंसंट्रेटिंग, एंड आई एम एंडिंग दिस सेशन right here, right now.